Title: The Haunting of Hollow Manor. On a sinister Halloween night in a fog-shrouded town, where the twisted branches of ancient trees clawed at the sky and shadows danced eerily in the moonlight, a desolate mansion known as Hollow Manor loomed. Its decaying walls whispered tales of the tormented souls that had once called it home, and the townsfolk dared not venture near it. Among them was Sarah, a curious teenager with a thirst for adventure, who couldn't resist the lure of the supposedly haunted house. The legend of Hollow Manor told of the tragic past of the mansion and its enigmatic caretaker, Mr. Johnson. Sarah, with her heart pounding and flashlight in hand, ventured closer to the mansion's ominous facade. Her footsteps echoed on the cobblestone path leading to the creaking, weathered door. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as Sarah pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit, dust-laden foyer. The air was icy, and the smell of decay lingered. She couldn't resist the urge to explore further. As she ventured deeper into the mansion, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. Mysterious sounds echoed through the mansion, unsettling Sarah as she navigated its labyrinthine hallways. Phantom footsteps seemed to taunt her, and eerie whispers danced on the edge of her hearing. Was it the wind, the house settling, or something more sinister? In one of the grand parlors, Sarah stumbled upon a tattered portrait hanging on the wall. The image depicted a family, once full of life and happiness. Their eyes, however, held a hint of sorrow, as if the very essence of their existence had been drained. The faces in the portrait seemed to follow her, and she shivered. Continuing her exploration, Sarah discovered a hidden staircase leading to a foreboding cellar. With each step she descended, the temperature dropped, and the air grew thick with an otherworldly presence. She reached a crypt-like chamber adorned with ancient symbols etched into the walls. In the center of the room stood an ornate, gilded mirror. As Sarah gazed into the mirror, her reflection began to distort, revealing a nightmarish vision of the mansion's past. She saw the family from the portrait, forever trapped in the mirror's cursed embrace, their anguished faces pleading for release. Among them was Mr. Johnson, the caretaker, who was revealed as the architect of their torment. Suddenly, the room echoed with anguished cries, and the spirits of the trapped souls swirled around her. They were restless, seeking retribution for their suffering, and Sarah could feel their sorrow and anger. Panic welled up within her as she realized the true horror of Hollow Manor. In her desperation, Sarah clutched her flashlight, hoping to find a way to free the tormented souls. The beam of light revealed an old, ornate key on a dusty table. She took the key and rushed back to the mirror, her heart racing. With trembling hands, she inserted the key into a hidden keyhole within the mirror's frame. As she turned it, a blinding flash of light engulfed her. When the light faded, the mirror shattered, and the spirits were released with a collective wail that reverberated throughout the mansion. The weight of the past had been lifted, and Hollow Manor fell silent once more. Sarah had freed the tormented souls from their eternal prison. She emerged from the mansion, feeling a sense of closure and relief. The curse that had hung over the town for generations was finally broken. But as she looked back one last time, she saw the faintest smile on Mr. Johnson's face in the ruined mirror frame. His enigmatic, ghostly figure faded into the night, leaving Sarah with a lingering unease. Had she truly broken the curse, or had she merely added another chapter to the mansion's dark history? As she walked away from Hollow Manor, the fog swallowed the old mansion, and the moonlight cast eerie shadows on the decaying walls. Sarah couldn't help but wonder if the past truly could be laid to rest, or if the haunting of Hollow Manor would continue to echo through the ages. A tale of curiosity and consequences that would chill the hearts of those who dared to enter its cursed halls. Title: Whispers from Beyond. On a chilling Halloween night, the ancient graveyard stood silent beneath the pale glow of the moon. The centuries-old tombstones bore witness to countless tales of the departed, and their presence lingered in the air, carrying the weight of history and secrets. Among the living who dared to venture into the heart of this ghostly realm was Emma, a young history enthusiast with a yearning for the past. Emma's fascination with the stories of the deceased had brought her to this eerie place. Armed with an old, leather-bound book of incantations she had found in her late grandmother's attic, she had come to the graveyard in search of a connection to the spirits of the past. Little did she know that her actions would awaken something far more sinister. As the clock struck midnight, Emma stood alone among the moss-covered tombstones, the book clutched tightly in her trembling hands. The air grew heavy with anticipation, and a sense of foreboding settled in her chest. The ancient words on the pages seemed to pulse with power, waiting to be spoken. With a deep breath, Emma began to recite the incantation, her voice trembling in the silence of the night. The words seemed to echo through the graveyard, and a frigid breeze rustled the leaves of the gnarled trees. The moonlight danced on the tombstones, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach out to her. Just as Emma finished the incantation, the world around her shifted. The temperature dropped, and the very ground beneath her seemed to tremble. In the moon's ethereal glow, a ghostly apparition materialized before her. It was a figure dressed in tattered, centuries-old garments, its features obscured by an otherworldly mist. The spirit's eyes, however, shone with an otherworldly, haunting light. They locked onto Emma with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. The atmosphere grew ominous as the apparition slowly approached, its footsteps barely making a sound on the dew-covered grass. Emma's curiosity had become a chilling reality, and she couldn't tear her gaze away from the spirit. She had yearned for a connection to the past, but this was something she could never have anticipated. The ghostly figure extended a transparent hand towards her, and a voice, as cold and distant as the grave, whispered through the night. "Help me find peace," it implored, the words resonating in the very core of Emma's being. Before she could respond, a burst of spectral energy surged from the apparition, enveloping her in an icy embrace. She felt herself transported to another realm, one that straddled the boundaries between life and death. The world was an eerie reflection of the graveyard, filled with mist and shadow. As Emma navigated this ghostly realm, the apparition, now a constant presence by her side, led her through a series of harrowing experiences. They wandered through spectral memories of the past, witnessing moments of love, despair, and tragedy that had long been forgotten by the living. But as Emma continued her journey with the restless spirit, she began to sense a malevolent force lurking in the shadows, watching their every move. Whispers of darkness and sorrow echoed in the mist, and Emma felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The apparition's pleas for peace grew increasingly desperate, as if it were running from something beyond the veil of the living. Emma's heart pounded, and her fear deepened as she realized that the spirit was not alone in this realm. There were others, lost and tormented, their presence twisting the very fabric of the ghostly world. As the ghostly pursuit continued, the boundary between life and death blurred further, and Emma realized that she had become entangled in a nightmarish existence. With each step, the ominous force drew closer, its shadowy presence inching towards them. Then, in the midst of this supernatural chaos, a shocking revelation unfolded. The apparition was not the innocent, long-lost soul it had seemed to be. It had been the malevolent force all along, luring Emma into its world, using her as a vessel to escape its own eternal torment. In a heart-stopping moment, the ghostly figure revealed its true, terrifying form, and it lunged at Emma, its eyes ablaze with malicious intent. In a final, desperate act, Emma recited the incantation once more, using the very book that had brought her to this nightmare. A blinding light erupted, and the apparition was banished back to the spectral realm, imprisoned once again. Emma was returned to the ancient graveyard, her body trembling and her heart heavy with the weight of her ordeal. The graveyard was silent once more, the moon casting an ethereal glow on the tombstones. She had toyed with the boundaries between life and death, and the consequences had been far more terrifying than she could have imagined. As she left the graveyard, the book of incantations clutched tightly in her hand. Emma couldn't help but wonder if the restless spirits would ever find peace, or if they would forever remain trapped in the ghostly realm. She had discovered the power of the supernatural, but it had come at a grave cost, leaving her with a chilling understanding of the boundaries between life and death, and a haunting tale to tell of the witching hour she had ventured into, never to forget. Titled The Labyrinth of Shadows. The full moon hung low in the Inkai sky, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling, isolated corn maze. The towering stalks formed a labyrinth, and it was said that once you entered, you would be forever ensnared by its sinister secrets. Among those who dared to navigate the maze was Jason, a skeptic who had scoffed at the legends surrounding it. Jason had gathered with a group of friends on that fateful Halloween night, drawn by their daredevil spirits and a desire to prove that the stories of the cursed corn maze were nothing more than superstition. Armed with flashlights and a sense of bravado, they entered the maze, unaware of the ancient evil that dwelled within. As the group ventured deeper into the maze, the atmosphere grew tense. The rustling of cornstalks seemed to whisper ominous secrets, and the moonlight filtered through the thick canopy of leaves overhead, creating eerie patterns on the ground. Their laughter faded into nervous glances, and a sense of unease settled upon them. The maze, however, was a treacherous labyrinth, and it wasn't long before they realized they were lost. Cornstalks towered around them, forming a suffocating wall of shadows. Panic set in as they retraced their steps, only to find themselves further entangled in the maze's sinister design. As they wandered through the ever-shifting passages, the ominous whispers grew louder, their voices dripping with malice. It was as if the very walls of the maze were taunting them, and their skepticism began to waver. Jason's once confident demeanor was replaced by a deepening sense of dread. The malevolent presence that lurked within the maze watched their every move, its ancient evil feeding on their fear. It was a force that had plagued the corn maze for centuries, a darkness born of forgotten rituals and long-buried secrets. Suddenly, a thick fog rolled in, obscuring their vision. Jason and his friends, now thoroughly disoriented, realized they were being stalked by a malevolent force. The fog seemed to conceal the presence, allowing it to move unseen and strike fear into their hearts. With each step, the malevolent force grew bolder. It created unnatural sounds, unnerving laughter, ghostly whispers, and the unsettling rustling of unseen figures in the corn. Jason and his friends were separated, their terrified cries fading into the abyss of the labyrinth. Jason stumbled upon a clearing, his heart racing, and turned to face the ominous presence. It materialized before him, a shadowy figure with hollow eyes that seemed to draw him into the abyss. Fear gripped him, and he felt the malevolent force probing his mind, exploiting his deepest fears and doubts. The ancient evil's chilling whispers taunted him, revealing long-buried secrets and insecurities. Jason's skepticism had wavered, and now it was being used against him. The malevolent force promised that they would never escape the cursed maze, that they would be forever trapped in its nightmarish depths. Desperation seized Jason, and he sprinted away from the sinister figure. The fog grew thicker, and the maze seemed to shift around him, its path leading him further into the heart of the labyrinth. He was alone and pursued by the relentless force that sought to shatter his skepticism and imprison him within the maze-haunted embrace. The malevolent presence continued to torment him, its sinister laughter echoing in the darkness. Jason's friends, scattered throughout the labyrinth, were enduring their own harrowing ordeals, their fear and doubt magnified by the evil that stalked them. In a desperate bid to escape, Jason pushed forward, his flashlight cutting through the fog and shadows. He could see glimpses of his friends, but they were trapped in their own nightmares, battling the malevolent force that sought to break them. As the hours passed, and the malevolent presence closed in, Jason's skepticism waned further. The boundaries between reality and the supernatural blurred, and he was forced to confront the terrifying possibility that the legends were true. The ancient evil was very real, and its sinister power was beyond his comprehension. In a final, desperate act, Jason recalled an old superstition. He retrieved a small piece of twine from his pocket and tied it around a cornstalk, creating a makeshift protective charm. With every step, he hung a new talisman, forming a barrier between himself and the malevolent force. The labyrinth of shadows seemed to protest, its oppressive presence weakening as Jason continued to ward it off with the makeshift charms. In a last-ditch effort, he called out to his friends, urging them to do the same. As they hung their own protective charms, the malevolent force howled in defeat. Its power weakened, and the fog dissipated, revealing the familiar path to escape. Jason and his friends, their skepticism forever shattered, rushed to the maze exit, their hearts pounding with a mix of terror and relief. As they emerged from the cursed corn maze, they looked back at the foreboding labyrinth, their breaths shuddering. The ancient evil had been vanquished, but the consequences of their skepticism had brought them to the brink of a nightmarish abyss. The malevolent presence would forever haunt their memories, a chilling reminder that some secrets were not meant to be challenged, and that the fear of the unknown could be far more sinister than they had ever imagined. The cursed corn maze would forever be a place of dread, a labyrinth of shadows where the boundaries between skepticism and the supernatural had been irrevocably shattered. Title: The Haunting of Hollow Carnival. On Halloween night, when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest, an eerie carnival ground lay in a forgotten corner of the town. The long-abandoned rides and attractions creaked and groaned in the pale moonlight, casting twisted shadows that danced menacingly. Among those who sought thrill and danger on this ominous night was Mia, a young thrill-seeker who had heard whispers of the spectral carnival's return. Drawn by the allure of the macabre and the promise of unparalleled terror, Mia approached the abandoned carnival with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Her footsteps on the cobblestone path seemed to echo through the desolation. As she ventured further, she felt an eerie presence in the air, as if the very atmosphere crackled with a malevolent energy. The carnival seemed to beckon her, its attractions and tents taking on a surreal and nightmarish quality. The once vibrant colors of the rides had faded into grotesque shades of decay, and the laughter of visitors had been replaced by a haunting, otherworldly chorus. Mia's curiosity and thrill-seeking nature led her deeper into the heart of the spectral carnival. She couldn't resist the pull of the macabre, even as a sense of unease settled over her. As she approached a tent, the entrance parted on its own, and a spectral performer emerged. The figure was dressed in a tattered, grotesque costume, with a twisted mask that concealed their identity. They extended a bony, gloved hand, beckoning Mia to enter the tent. The allure of the macabre was too strong to resist, and Mia ventured inside. The interior of the tent was a surreal and nightmarish world. Twisted funhouse mirrors distorted her reflection, and eerie, otherworldly music filled the air. The spectral performer led her through a maze of macabre and surreal performances, where contortionists bent their bodies in unnatural ways, fire-eaters defied the laws of nature, and grotesque clowns danced with a disturbing grace. Mia was captivated and terrified in equal measure. The performances seemed to defy the boundaries of reality, and she couldn't look away. The allure of the macabre had ensnared her, and she felt herself drawn deeper into the nightmarish spectacle. As the performances continued, Mia began to realize that the spectral carnival was not just a place of eerie entertainment. It was a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred. The performers were not of this world, and they seemed to exist in a perpetual state of torment. The ghostly audience watched the performances in silence, their faces twisted in anguish, their applause a mournful echo of a forgotten time. Mia felt a sense of dread wash over her as she realized that she was not a mere spectator, she had become a part of the terrifying performance. In a nightmarish climax, Mia found herself on a shadowy stage, surrounded by spectral performers. The ghostly audience watched with hollow eyes, their silent expectation weighing heavily upon her. The spectral performer who had led her into the tent reappeared, their grotesque mask concealing their expression. Mia's heart raced as she was handed a crimson rose, a symbol of the macabre world she had entered. The spectral performer held a twisted dagger, and with a sinister smile, they gestured for her to take the dagger in her trembling hand. The ghostly audience watched in anticipation, their silent approval echoing through the night. In the menacing and macabre atmosphere, Mia felt the weight of the night's allure and the consequences of her thrill-seeking desires. With the dagger in her hand, she was forced to become a part of the nightmarish performance, to enact a sinister ritual that would bind her to the spectral carnival for eternity. The ghostly audience's mournful whispers filled the air as Mia hesitated, the allure of the macabre pulling her into a nightmarish world she could never escape. The dagger hovered, its blade glinting ominously in the pale moonlight. The spectral performer's twisted smile grew wider, urging her to complete the ritual. In a final, heart-pounding moment, Mia made a fateful decision. She plunged the dagger into the ground, severing the spectral performer's hold on her. The tent and its nightmarish world shattered around her, fading into the darkness. As Mia emerged from the spectral carnival, her heart heavy with the cost of seeking thrills, she couldn't shake the haunting memory of the allure of the macabre. The carnival's eerie presence had ensnared her, but she had broken free, and the boundary between the living and the dead had been restored. The carnival grounds, once a place of torment, lay silent and abandoned once more, as if it had never existed. Mia had escaped the nightmarish spectacle, but the allure of the macabre would forever haunt her, a chilling reminder that seeking thrills could come at a cost too terrifying to bear. The spectral carnival's call would forever echo in her dreams, a haunting tale of the boundaries between the living and the dead, and the allure of the macabre that could ensnare even the bravest of souls. Title: Shadows of Halloween. The Johnson family had recently moved to a quiet suburban neighborhood, their quaint house nestled among others with neatly trimmed lawns and picturesque gardens. They looked forward to celebrating their first Halloween in their new home, unaware of the secrets that lay hidden in the heart of their serene neighborhood. Halloween night arrived, and the Johnsons decorated their home with jack-o'-lanterns, cobwebs, and other spooky embellishments. The neighborhood buzzed with the excitement of children dressed as witches, superheroes, and ghouls, going door to door for tricks and treats. As the sun dipped below the horizon, and the moon cast a pallid glow over the neighborhood, the Johnsons prepared for the arrival of their first trick-or-treaters. But the night was different than they had imagined. The doorbell rang, and Mrs. Johnson opened it to find a group of children dressed in eerie, old-fashioned costumes. Their faces were unnaturally pale, and their eyes had a vacant, distant look. They held out their plastic pumpkins for candy, but their demeanor was unsettling, almost as if they were not of this world. Mrs. Johnson, attempting to hide her unease, placed candy in their bags and watched them silently as they departed. She couldn't help but feel a shiver of disquiet as they moved on to the next house. The night continued, and more groups of children arrived, each one more unsettling than the last. Mr. Johnson noticed that the children's costumes seemed to belong to a bygone era, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As the evening wore on, he decided to investigate further. He discreetly followed the ghostly trick-or-treaters as they went from house to house. The children led him to a park at the center of the neighborhood, a place known for its quiet charm and picturesque gazebo. The park was illuminated only by the pale moonlight, casting eerie shadows on the cobblestone paths. The children gathered in a circle around the gazebo, and Mr. Johnson hid in the shadows to observe their strange behavior. To his horror, the children began to chant a haunting melody, their voices carrying an unsettling resonance. The words of the chant seemed to echo with a dark history, a sinister tale that had been hidden for generations. As they chanted, the ground beneath the gazebo began to tremble, and a spectral mist enveloped the children. They rose into the air, their forms twisting and contorting as they merged with the shadows. The gazebo seemed to come alive, its wood groaning and shifting as if it were a living, sentient entity. Mr. Johnson watched in terror as the spectral children's voices reached a crescendo. The gazebo transformed into a nightmarish portal, and from within it emerged ghostly figures of long-dead residents, each one taking on a ghastly form from their past. The neighborhood's dark history was revealed. It was a place where secrets had been buried, and where the living and the dead coexisted in an eerie, eternal Halloween night. The spectral residents, once trapped in a liminal existence, were now free to haunt the neighborhood and reenact their own dark pasts. With a chilling realization, Mr. Johnson understood that the Johnson family had unwittingly moved into a neighborhood of the supernatural, a place where Halloween night was eternal and where the past refused to rest. As he fled from the park, his heart pounding, Mr. Johnson knew that he had to warn his family. The sinister chant of the spectral children echoed in his mind, and the enigmatic secrets of the suburban life weighed heavily on his soul. Back at their home, he shared his harrowing encounter with Mrs. Johnson, who couldn't hide her disbelief. They decided to investigate further, researching the neighborhood's history and the chilling events that had led to its eternal Halloween night. Their findings revealed a hidden tale of tragedy and malevolence. Decades ago, a sinister event had occurred in the neighborhood, one that had been covered up and forgotten by the living. The neighborhood had become a liminal space where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred, and the past refused to be buried. The Johnsons realized that they were trapped in a nightmare, a neighborhood where Halloween night was eternal, and the spectral residents reenacted their own dark pasts. The spectral children were part of the enigmatic curse, forever bound to haunt the neighborhood. With their newfound knowledge, the Johnsons embarked on a quest to break the curse and free the spectral residents from their eternal torment. It was a journey fraught with danger and enigma, as they delved into the dark history of the neighborhood and sought a way to undo the malevolent chant. As Halloween night continued to stretch on, the Johnsons worked tirelessly to uncover the secrets of the past and break the curse that bound the spectral residents. They encountered apparitions, spectral apparitions, and malevolent forces that sought to prevent them from unraveling the dark mystery. In a spine-tingling climax, they discovered the source of the curse and the means to end it. With a heart-pounding ritual, they chanted a counter-incantation that shattered the nightmarish portal, releasing the spectral residents from their eternal Halloween night. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the neighborhood's eerie atmosphere dissipated. The spectral children vanished into the shadows, and the neighborhood returned to its serene, peaceful existence. The Johnsons had broken the curse, and they had brought an end to the eternal Halloween night. As they watched the neighborhood return to normal, they couldn't help but wonder about the enigmatic secrets of suburban life, the fear of the unknown, and the cost of uncovering the past. Their Halloween night had been an unforgettable journey into the enigmatic and the supernatural, and they would forever carry with them the spine-tingling tale of Shadows of Halloween. Title: Whispers of the Hollowed Tree. Deep within a dense, shadowy forest, where gnarled trees reached their skeletal branches towards the full moon, an aura of foreboding and ancient secrets enveloped the landscape. Mark, a nature enthusiast with an insatiable curiosity, had always been drawn to the mysteries of the wilderness, but he was about to discover that some enigmas were better left untouched. One ominous night, as the moon cast an eerie glow over the dark woods, Mark ventured deep into the heart of the forest. He had heard whispers of a forbidden hollowed tree, an ancient and gnarled giant that stood in solitary isolation. Legends spoke of a vengeful spirit trapped within, and an unspoken rule among the locals was never to approach it. But Mark's curiosity was his undoing. The gnarled tree loomed before him, its massive roots winding into the earth like serpents. It was a site of ancient power, and he could not resist the pull of the unknown. Approaching the hollowed tree, Mark hesitated for a moment, aware of the legends that surrounded it. A sense of dread washed over him, but he cast it aside, determined to uncover the mysteries within. With a trembling hand, he reached out to touch the tree's grotesque, bark-covered surface. As Mark's fingers made contact with the tree, a shiver passed through him. The forest seemed to grow still, as if holding its breath. The very atmosphere appeared to thicken, and Mark felt an unnatural presence, a malevolent entity awakening from its slumber. The hollowed tree trembled, its dark opening gaping like a maw, and a chilling gust of wind rushed from within. The moonlight illuminated the interior of the tree, revealing a shadowy, spectral figure, its eyes hollow and soulless. The vengeful spirit had been released. Mark stumbled back, his heart pounding, as the malevolent entity emerged from the tree's depths. It was a being of darkness, twisted by ancient anger and hatred. Its presence was suffocating, and Mark could feel it probing his mind, feeding on his fears and doubts. The forest around them seemed to come alive with paranormal phenomena. Shadows danced in the moonlight, and eerie whispers filled the air, carrying the mournful voices of long-forgotten souls. Mark was trapped in a nightmare, and he knew that he had awakened a force that he could not control. The vengeful spirit, its hollow gaze fixed on Mark, reached out with spectral hands, its fingers like icy tendrils, and Mark could feel the malevolent entity's grasp tightening on his very soul. Panic surged within him as he realized that he was entangled in a nightmarish encounter that defied the laws of the natural world. In a desperate bid to escape, Mark turned and fled from the hollowed tree, the malevolent entity pursuing him with relentless determination. The forest was alive with eerie, supernatural forces, and Mark's mind was filled with haunting whispers and surreal visions. As he raced through the gnarled trees, branches seemed to reach out for him, their thorny fingers tearing at his flesh. The moonlight cast grotesque, ever-shifting shadows that seemed to take on monstrous forms. The vengeful spirit's malevolent laughter echoed through the darkness, and Mark could feel its presence closing in. In a heart-pounding climax, Mark stumbled upon an ancient, long-forgotten shrine hidden deep within the forest. It was a place of long-lost rituals, a sanctuary of the supernatural. With trembling hands, he desperately recited an incantation he found inscribed on the shrine, hoping to banish the malevolent entity that pursued him. As the incantation left his lips, a blinding light erupted, and the malevolent entity wailed in torment. The force that had pursued him was banished, returning to the hollowed tree from which it had been released. The ancient spirit was once again trapped within the gnarled giant. Mark, his body bruised and his mind haunted, emerged from the forest, his heart heavy with the consequences of his curiosity. The hollowed tree stood silent and ominous in the moonlight, a sentinel of ancient secrets that could never be unraveled. As Mark walked away from the forest, he couldn't help but ponder the enigmatic mysteries of the natural world and the power of ancient spirits. He had ventured into the darkness and unleashed a malevolent force, and in the end, he had discovered that some secrets were better left untouched. The whispers of the hollowed tree would forever haunt his memory, a chilling tale of the consequences of disrespecting nature and the enigmatic power of ancient spirits. Title: Dance of the Unearthly Masquerade. In a world long forgotten by time, within the decaying walls of a grand, abandoned mansion, an exquisite ballroom lay in eerie slumber. Its opulent chandeliers, once ablaze with light, now hung in silence, their candles reduced to mere stubs. The grandeur of the past had given way to haunting stillness. Olivia, a passionate historian with an insatiable curiosity, was drawn to the mansion's secrets. With candlelight flickering in her hand, she stepped into the abandoned ballroom. The air was heavy with the scent of aged wood and faded memories, and the space was infused with a sense of elegant yet eerie beauty. As she wandered through the room, Olivia's fingers brushed against the dusty remnants of the mansion's opulent past. The faded wallpaper depicted scenes of grand masquerades and ethereal dances, but the grand ballroom was far from empty. In the glow of her candlelight, Olivia discovered a peculiar scene that defied the logic of time. The ballroom had come to life with spectral masqueraders, their elegant costumes draped in a kaleidoscope of colors. They moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of the living. The ethereal dancers swirled around the ballroom, their masks revealing only their eyes, which glowed with an otherworldly light. Olivia watched in awe as they moved in eerie unison, their steps silent, their presence hauntingly beautiful. Drawn into the mystique of the unearthly masquerade, Olivia found herself entranced. The spectral dancers seemed to beckon her with their hollow gazes, and she couldn't resist the allure of the supernatural. She became a part of the dance, her candlelight joining the ghostly illumination of the ballroom. The dance continued, elegant and chilling, as the spectral masqueraders twirled around Olivia. Their movements were seamless, their presence haunting. It was as if they were frozen in a dance that had transcended time, a ghastly celebration of the past. As Olivia moved with the ethereal dancers, she felt an uncanny connection to the mansion's history. She sensed that the masquerade was more than a mere apparition. It was a glimpse into a world long forgotten, a portal to the grandeur of the past. But as the dance reached its climax, Olivia realized that the unearthly masquerade held a chilling revelation. The spectral dancers were not mere apparitions of the past. They were trapped souls, forever bound to the grand ballroom. The elegance of their dance concealed the torment of their existence. Desperation seized Olivia as she tried to break free from the relentless dance, but the spectral masqueraders held her in their icy grasp. Their hollow gazes revealed the anguish of their plight, and Olivia understood that she was now a part of their eternal dance. In a heart-pounding moment, she called upon her historian's knowledge, seeking a way to release herself from the unearthly masquerade. She recited a forgotten incantation, a plea for release from the spectral dance, and the ethereal dancers wailed in torment. With an ethereal burst of light, the grand ballroom transformed. The once elegant masquerade now dissolved into darkness, its beauty tainted by the torment of the trapped souls. Olivia's candlelight, flickering with an eerie brilliance, cast long shadows over the ballroom. The mansion's secrets were unveiled as Olivia confronted the chilling truth. The grand ballroom had once hosted a real masquerade, a place of decadent revelry and unspoken intrigues. The ethereal dancers had been trapped in a never-ending dance, their souls bound to the grandeur of the past. With a heavy heart, Olivia left the grand ballroom behind, its elegant yet eerie beauty forever etched in her memory. The allure of the supernatural had brought her into a world where the past came to life, but it was a world of eternal torment, a ghastly dance of the spectral masqueraders. As she stepped out of the abandoned mansion and back into the world of the living, Olivia couldn't help but ponder the enigmatic allure of the past and the consequences of her curiosity. The dance of the unearthly masquerade would forever haunt her, a haunting tale of the grandeur of the past and the eerie beauty of the supernatural. Title: Whispers of the Ghostly Tides. On a desolate beach, where the fog clung to the shores and the moon cast an eerie glow on the restless waters, David, a seasoned fisherman, ventured out into the mysterious night. The salt-tinged air was thick with foreboding, and the chilling silence of the beach stretched far into the distance. As he trudged through the damp sand, David came upon a haunting sight, a spectral shipwreck. The ancient vessel lay half buried in the shore, its time-worn timbers jutting out of the ground like skeletal remains. The fog embraced the shipwreck, as if the sea itself had given birth to this ghostly relic. Drawn by an irresistible curiosity, David approached the spectral ship. Its rigging was tattered, and its mast seemed to reach for the moon. The deck, covered in slippery seaweed, creaked with the echoes of long-lost souls. The ship had an otherworldly aura, a phantom from the depths of the ocean. As he stood before the ghostly ship, David heard whispers in the air, a mournful chorus carried by the restless winds. The whispers seemed to come from within the ship, and he couldn't discern their origin. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end as the ethereal voices enveloped him. It was then that David saw them, the ghostly crew of the ship, their spectral forms emerging from the shadows. Their eyes were hollow voids, and their faces held a mournful expression. They were the souls of lost sailors, trapped in a watery purgatory. The ghostly crew began to move with an eerie synchrony, as if they were still bound by their duties aboard the cursed vessel. Their movements were silent, their footsteps leaving no imprint on the damp sand. David watched in awe and terror as they enacted a haunting maritime ordeal, their ghostly presence a chilling reminder of the curses of lost sailors. In a heart-pounding moment, one of the spectral sailors extended a bony hand toward David, as if inviting him to join their cursed crew. The whispering winds seemed to call his name, and a dread-filled realization seized him. This spectral ship was a portal to a netherworld of maritime torment. With a trembling heart, David turned to flee from the ghostly ship, but the spectral crew followed him with relentless determination. They moved with an unnatural speed, their hollow gazes fixed on him. The sound of the crashing waves seemed to merge with their mournful wails. David's escape became a desperate race against time and tide. He ran along the desolate beach, his breath ragged, his heart pounding. The ghostly sailors were always at his heels, and the haunting whispers of the sea filled his ears. In a heart-pounding climax, David found himself cornered by the restless waves, with the spectral shipwreck on one side and the ghostly crew on the other. It was a watery showdown, a maritime ordeal that would determine his fate. As the ghostly sailors closed in, David reached deep within himself and remembered the tales of his ancestors, the fishermen who had braved the unpredictable tides. With a final, desperate act, he cast a net into the restless sea, summoning the strength of the ancient mariners. The net seemed to come alive, its cords entwining the spectral sailors, binding them with a luminous, watery glow. The ghostly crew wailed in torment, their forms dissolving into the very sea they had once sailed. With the spirits of the lost sailors banished, David watched as the spectral shipwreck crumbled into the sands, its curse broken. The ghostly vessel returned to the depths of the ocean, its ethereal presence fading into the night. David, drenched in seawater and trembling with the memories of the spectral ordeal, left the desolate beach behind. The haunting whispers of the sea would forever echo in his dreams, a chilling tale of the mysteries of the ocean and the curses of lost sailors. As he returned to the world of the living, David couldn't help but ponder the enigmatic allure of the sea and the consequences of venturing into the watery realms of the unknown. The whispers of the ghostly tides would forever haunt his memory, a haunting tale of the mysteries of the sea and the enduring power of ancient mariners. Title: The Elegy of the Haunting Melody. On a chilling Halloween night, in the heart of an old, decrepit theater, a pallid moon cast an eerie glow on the aging facade. Sophie, a talented violinist with dreams of musical greatness, had been drawn to this forsaken place by an insatiable curiosity that would lead her into the embrace of a malevolent entity. The theater, shrouded in a cloak of melancholic memories, stood as a relic of bygone performances. Its once grand stage, now tattered and worn, had hosted countless artists who had left their echoes within its dilapidated walls. Sophie, carrying her violin like a torch, ventured into the forgotten theater. The musty air hung heavy with the weight of time, and cobwebs clung to the ornate balconies like forgotten veils. The chilling atmosphere did little to deter her, as the allure of the forgotten theater held her in its spectral grasp. As she ascended the creaking stairs to the stage, Sophie felt a haunting presence, a malevolent musical entity that seemed to lurk in the shadows. She brushed it aside, determined to fulfill her ambition to compose a piece that would etch her name into the annals of music history. With her violin in hand, Sophie began to play a hauntingly beautiful melody, her notes dancing through the desolate theater. The music was ethereal, evoking a sense of longing and despair, as if the very essence of the theater's tragic past had been woven into her composition. The theater responded to her music. As the melancholic notes filled the air, the shadows deepened, and a ghostly figure emerged on the stage. It was the malevolent entity, a spectral conductor, who seemed to beckon to Sophie with a bony hand. Intrigued and enticed by the haunting presence, Sophie continued to play, her music merging with the eerie sounds of unseen instruments. The spectral conductor guided her, his movements fluid and entrancing, as if he were leading an otherworldly orchestra. As the music reached a crescendo, the audience from the theater's distant past seemed to materialize in the balcony. Their ghostly forms watched in silence, their eyes hollow and void of life, as Sophie played on, oblivious to the spectral audience that had gathered. The theater had come alive with eerie music, a performance that transcended the boundaries of the living and the dead. Sophie's ambition had led her to the heart of the supernatural, and the malevolent entity's presence grew stronger, its sinister influence reaching deep into her soul. With a sudden realization, Sophie understood that her ambition had come at a chilling cost. The haunting melody had not only conjured the malevolent entity but had also ensnared her in an otherworldly performance from which she could not escape. The spectral conductor's movements grew more frantic, his spectral orchestra playing with a malevolence that mirrored his own. The theater's audience, their ghostly gazes fixed on Sophie, seemed to feed on her artistic energy, sapping her vitality with each haunting note. Desperation seized Sophie as she tried to break free from the spectral performance. The haunting melody had become a curse, its ethereal beauty masking the sinister intent of the malevolent entity and the ghostly audience. In a heart-pounding climax, Sophie realized that she had to reclaim her music and break free from the malevolent entity's grasp. With every ounce of her artistic strength, she played a counter-melody, a composition that fought back against the haunting melody that had ensnared her. As the counter-melody resounded through the theater, the malevolent entity and the spectral conductor wailed in torment. The ethereal audience dissolved into the shadows, their ghostly gazes vanishing into the abyss. With a final, haunting note, the malevolent musical entity was banished, and the haunting melody faded into silence. The old, decrepit theater stood in eerie stillness, its malevolent presence exorcised by Sophie's artistry. Sophie, her violin cradled in her trembling hands, left the forsaken theater behind. The allure of artistic ambition had brought her into a world where music transcended the boundaries of the living and the dead. But it was a world of haunting consequences and malevolent entities. As she returned to the world of the living, Sophie couldn't help but ponder the enigmatic power of music and the cost of artistic ambition. The elegy of the haunting melody would forever haunt her memory, a chilling tale of the melancholic allure of the supernatural and the enduring power of artistic expression. Title: Reflections of the Cursed Mirror. In the heart of an old, dimly lit antique shop, where time seemed to stand still and shadows clung to every corner, Alex, an avid collector with a penchant for the macabre, stood before a peculiar, ornate mirror. The mirror's frame was adorned with intricate carvings, and its glass bore the weight of ancient secrets. Alex had always been drawn to the enigmatic, to the mysteries of the past. As Halloween night cast its eerie glow, the allure of the cursed mirror proved irresistible. The antique shop owner, a cryptic figure with eyes that seemed to see into the depths of the soul, presented the mirror to Alex with a knowing smile. The mirror was said to hold the tormented souls of the past, those who had gazed into it and become ensnared by its curse. Alex, unfazed by the ominous warnings, decided to make the mirror his own. With the cursed mirror now in his possession, Alex placed it in his home, a place where he could study its intricacies and unlock its hidden secrets. The mirror had an uncanny presence, and its glass seemed to hold a malevolent intelligence. On Halloween night, as the moon cast its spectral light through the windows, Alex found himself drawn to the mirror's eerie allure. He gazed into the glass, his reflection distorted and grotesque. As he looked deeper, the mirror seemed to ripple like water, and the tormented souls trapped within began to manifest. Spectral apparitions materialized in the mirror, their faces twisted with anguish and despair. They reached out from the glass, their spectral fingers brushing against the surface, as if yearning for release. The mirror had become a portal to a world of restless spirits. Alex watched in horror as the tormented souls within the mirror began to speak. Their voices were a haunting chorus of anguish, their words a chilling lament for their fate. They revealed the mirror's curse, a curse that bound them to eternal torment, a curse that would now extend to Alex. Desperation seized Alex as he realized that the cursed mirror had ensnared him in its malevolent web. The spectral souls whispered to him, their voices like a cacophony of madness, and he could feel their torment seeping into his very soul. With a heart pounding in terror, Alex tried to break free from the cursed mirror, but the spectral souls held him in their spectral grasp. Their ghostly fingers seemed to pull him closer to the glass, as if they sought to drag him into their realm of eternal torment. The mirror had become a gateway to the world of the spectral, and there was no escape from the malevolent entity that lurked within. The cursed mirror's power was a force beyond his control, and it threatened to consume his very essence. In a heart-pounding climax, Alex realized that he had to confront the mirror's curse and the tormented souls within. With a determined will, he reached into the spectral world within the glass, his hand passing through the mirror's surface. As he touched the tormented souls, he felt their anguish and despair, but he also felt their yearning for release, their hope that someone could break the curse that bound them. With a surge of resolve, Alex recited an incantation, a plea for the trapped soul's liberation. The mirror shuddered, and the spectral souls wailed in torment as their curse was broken. With a blinding light, they were released from their spectral prison, their forms dissipating into the night. The cursed mirror, now bereft of its malevolent presence, was reduced to a mere antique. Alex, exhausted and haunted by the memory of the mirror's curse, left it behind. The consequences of materialism and his quest for the macabre had nearly cost him his soul. The reflections of the cursed mirror would forever haunt his memory, a chilling tale of the trapped souls of the past and the enduring power of the supernatural. As he returned to the world of the living, Alex couldn't help but ponder the enigmatic allure of the antique and the chilling consequences of his curiosity. The reflections of the cursed mirror would forever haunt his memory, a haunting tale of the consequences of materialism and the tormented souls of the past.